Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the February meeting on the air, DCARA. This is Bob, AF5RS. We're on the W5NGU repeater. Quick reminder that it's usually easier to listen either on the repeater or on Zoom, but not both, or you'll get totally confused. We always like to start with a moment of silence for all the COVID deaths. We surpassed 500,000 this weekend. So I'd like a moment of silence. Thank you for that. Stuart, I think you have some announcements.
This is KE5UT. This is the last call portion of our meeting. It is for two long-term members of the Denton County Amateur Radio Association who recently KD5QFB. This is W5NGU. KD5QFB. KD5QFB. This is W5NGU. Godspeed, Gary. This is KE5UT. Back to meeting.
Thank you, Stuart. Appreciate that. We've been taking check-ins now. We're going to pause for a minute and let Todd do a little more work. Todd and Cliff, appreciate it. Back to you, Todd.
This is Whiskey Echo 5, Tango Romeo, taking check-ins for the Denton County Amateur Radio Association meeting on the air. If you'd like to check in now via the repeater, please come now with your call signs slowly and phonetically. Key up. Kilo 5, Alpha, Golf, Oscar. Check. Kilo Victor 5, Kilo Romeo, Kevin. Foxtrot 5, Kilo Hotel, Robert Hayes. Stopping there, we heard Kilo 5, Alpha, Golf, Oscar, Kilo Victor 5, Kilo Romeo, and then there was a Foxtrot 5, Kilo Hotel is what I heard, but I don't think we're in France, so if you'd come again with your prefix and then any fill in on the suffix. Kilo Foxtrot 5, Delta Kilo Hotel. I heard Kilo Foxtrot 5, Delta Kilo Hotel. And was Kilo Victor 5, Kilo Romeo accurate, Kevin? Roger that. All right, next group of three, please. Slowly and phonetically with your call sign followed by your name. Whiskey Bravo 5, November, Zulu, Victor, Gerald. Golf 6, Yankee, November, Alpha, Albert, Denton. Alpha, India 5, Golf, Mark, and Frisco. Right, I heard Whiskey Bravo 5, Nancy, Zulu, Victor, Kilo, Golf 6, Yankee, November, Alpha, and Alpha, India 5, Golf, Mark, and Frisco. Thank you for joining us. Next group of three, slowly and phonetically with your call sign, please. Kilo Delta 5, Yankee Foxtrot Victor. Kilo Delta Delta 5, Yankee, Foxtrot, Victor. Steve. Kilo Golf 5, Kilo Alpha Juliet Jeff. W5NGU. This is Whiskey 5, India Charlie Kilo. Bob. Juliet Jeff and Whiskey 5, India Charlie Kilo. Bob. Whiskey 5, India Charlie Kilo. Thank you, and let's go back to Bob for a little bit of the meeting.
Thank you, Todd. This is AF5RS on W5NGU repeater. Okay. Like every month, we need an approval for the minutes as published in the newsletter. I'll assume it's all good unless I hear someone come back now with a problem. Nothing heard, so the minutes are approved. Treasurer's report. I updated this today. Our main account is $11,115.09. PayPal $1,042.36 for a total of $12,157.45. Gerald, can you confirm that? Thank you, Gerald. Cash flow is looking good. Next, Heath, this is your slide. You out there?
Kilo Charlie 5, fundraising Kroger Rewards Program. Check out the DCARA website. There is a number and information on there on how to link your telephone number to your Kroger Rewards Program, and that gives us money put in the treasury that we just heard about. Amazon Smile. Use smile.amazon.com. I buy all kinds of stuff on Amazon. I'm sure everybody else does. It lists Denton County Amateur Radio Club as a beneficiary, and money comes back into the club. Also, we want to thank members that have set up employer donations, such as Microsoft, Yahoo, Verizon, Network for Good, HP Your Cause, AT&T, and Dell.
Next slide.
Social media. Website, DCARA.net, Ham Club Online, Facebook, DCARA Denton, 5NGU, YouTube. I can't even begin to pronounce that, but I am working on getting us actually a custom URL on YouTube. Should have a new one for you by next meeting. We are on WhatsApp. If there is a particular group or interest that you have, reach out to one of us and we can get you into one of those chat groups. Also, if you don't have a radio handy, come listen to us on broadcastify.com. The 146, the 444, and the 14517 are all on broadcastify.com.
Thank you, Heath. This is AF5RS on the W5NGU repeater. In our community, first up, Stuart, KE5UT.
Bob, and to the net, our Sunshine Committee is active. If you know of someone who is ill in the club or has had a loss, let us know, and we'll reach out and do what we can to do the best we can to communicate our concerns. This is KE5UT, back to that.
Thank you, Stuart. How about Leo, N5DZO? Are you out there? Nothing heard, but I heard Sarah Ann, KE5MZT. Sarah Ann?
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
The Red Cross did support some shelters technically when the Red Cross itself didn't have shelters, but they supported a shelter in Louisville and one in Pilot Point, and in the midst of also responding to fires. So that's what we have going for us right now. And this is Kilo Echo 5 Mike Zulu Tango, back to net.
Thank you, Sarah Ann. How about Mike, KD0 CDQ? I think you checked in, didn't you?
This is KD0 CDQ. The Salvation Army has had their shelters open in the cold evenings. Louisville, Denton, Plano, McKinney, and other locations. Food has been coming in from Walmart, Target, Kroger, and other stores. Keep in mind, if you know anyone in need, on Tuesdays and Thursdays in Louisville, groceries are available at no charge between 10 and noon. Location is Main and Charles. On Tuesdays and Thursdays between 10 and 12, groceries are available. There's no obligation. Just line up and get what you need. That includes eggs and milk and fruit, all kind of canned goods. It's quite a good operation. This is KD0 CDQ.
Thank you, Mike. It's AF5RS on the W5NGU repeater. Miss Nancy, are you on the air? Here's your net slide.
Okay, so we have nets on the 9.2, and I'm still, wanting people to sign up and volunteer to be net control on Mondays. If you want to do that, please contact me. We have the Salvation Army Saturn net on Tuesdays, WinLink Wednesdays, the Denton County Aries Training net on the third Thursdays, Digitally Speaking net on Sundays with Lee Norup, the AR Newsline and ARRL News audio feed on Saturdays, Sundays, and Wednesdays. And I guess that's it for nets. Okay, so I've also got training on this slide. We are thinking about maybe doing a Zoom technician class. If you have any interest in that, please send me an email at training@DCARA.net. I will also be needing people who may want to volunteer to be instructors. I haven't organized this yet and figured out quite how it's going to work, but if there's an interest, let me know. And I guess that's all I have.
Thank you, Nancy. Testing. I don't know if I saw Mike checking in, but YX, are you out there? Well, we're early this month for our meeting, so the test section isn't happening till this coming Sunday, February 28th, so I don't have any data. But I believe they're booked for February, and I think I heard March as well. Those things are going really, really well. So get in line. Okay. Regarding Elmers, I want to welcome Scott, KG5RJR, and Todd, WE5TR, who stepped up and volunteered to be tag team Elmer coordinators. So thank you for that. Scott, Todd, you got anything to say about this?
This is KG5RGR. Well, we got some big shoes to fill. Todd and I talked and got a few ideas. Rookie roundup is coming up. That's a single side dance void. That is going to be April 18th. Yes, that's a Sunday. Yes, we've got COVID protocol going on at the location where that usually happens. So we're going to be working out some details and probably have details and a sign up starting at the next meeting. Until then, that's what we've got. I'm going to just pass it to Todd. Todd, any words? Bob said the title is Elmer Coordinators. So anyone who cares to help any younger hams or newer hams or hams with questions, anyone who wants to be on call as an Elmer to help out, please let Scott and I know so that we have people to coordinate. Thank you. WE5TR, back to Nat.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Todd. Appreciate you stepping up for that. Aries report. I know I heard Michael. Michael?
Sorry about that. I had to make sure I muted my Zoom meeting. This is KF5LDJ. I'm posting the link for our YouTube video, and I keep beating this one to death, but I do want everybody to watch this video if you have not. This is on the Skywarn training for our protocols in Denton County. We just want to tighten up our reports the best we can. And that's a great video going over the protocols for that. And I will probably push that after certain Skywarn notes, depending on how things go. And resetting here. I want to talk a little bit about what happened this past week. I did make a post on our Aries Facebook site. For those who don't subscribe to Facebook or not a fan of it or didn't see the post on the Denton Aries site, says the following list is from true stories throughout our county. These all came from reports during our health and welfare net that we had over the past week. I want to say thank you to all that participated in these nets and to all those who responded to the needs that were shared. And there's a picture here, and y'all are probably fairly familiar with this picture. It's from the ARRL. It says, "When all else fails, amateur radio." Power failed. Water failed. Internet failed. Natural gas failed. Home phone failed. Cell phone voice intermittently failed. Cell phone data failed. And even the resources at stores failed. A quick recap of what happened last week. Monday at noon, we decided to have a health and welfare net, and we really didn't know how to approach this. This was our first health and welfare net, a serious health and welfare net. And as we went through the net, we discovered some great needs. And we didn't necessarily coordinate it on the air, but we did have a flurry of phone calls and texts and WhatsApp messages afterwards. Tuesday, we did not have a health and welfare net. We didn't want to do it too many times, and we didn't want to do it not enough. And everyone made it clear that they have the need for the health and welfare nets. So Victoria Gardner stepped up to play. We had several meetings over the phone before the net and reformatted how we handled the net. And during Wednesday's net, we were able to coordinate getting some firewood to some people that needed it for heat sources, and other needs were met as well. Continued call for the nets happened. So Thursday, Victoria again stepped up and took that net on Thursday morning, or Thursday at noon. Then we decided early in the week, we decided that it was highly inappropriate to do a training net. So in place of the training net, we did health and welfare net at 7:30 last Thursday night. Friday, Kelly Work took the net. We again coordinated some help between each station. We asked again, do you want to continue this? And it was the consensus that we continue to have this net until at least through Sunday. Saturday, John Deneen, KC0L, took the net. And Sunday, Heath Gardner took the net. I just want to thank everybody that participated. It was important that everybody check in, no matter what your status was. We need to make sure you're okay. And plus, we need you to know the needs that are in your immediate area. But I've learned a lot of survival skills. I know a lot of us are talking about survival skills that we learned this round of a disaster. A lot of people are taking action for that. But one of the biggest assets we have as far as a survival skill is community. And I am proud to be part of this community. And I just want to thank everybody for standing up to the occasion. This is KF5LEJ. Anyone have any comments or questions? Hey, this is KF5LEJ. Back to net.
Thank you, Michael. This is AF5RS on W5NGU repeater. Appreciate all your work. Okay, technical report, Michael.
Alrighty, let me just have it here. Okay, Ross appears to be all green for the most part. Looks like we still got the offline on the DSL link online, and that's about it there. Let's go to the next slide. AOC, we're still waiting on Andrew to get the SCOMs retrofitted for the 17 and the 050 repeaters. That requires a fair amount of work on his part. He's a very busy person, so the wait will be well worth it. And the wind side, we certainly get those batteries at work out there in our storm there. I'm glad they were replaced before all this happened, and it evidently worked out just fine. We're still waiting on time and COVID issues to replace the PAs and get all that done. But when it happens, it'll happen pretty fast. Other than that, it seems to be working just fine the way it is right now. Last slide. And DCARA land mesh network all appear to be online. I didn't hear Andrew on there, so I'm making the assumption that all this is working just fine, and the LARC repeaters and all our fusion stuff is working okay. Anybody have any questions? Alrighty, AE55V, back to net.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, ops. I don't know if Andrew's checked in yet. He said he was going to be late, but it's pretty simple. There aren't any ops. There are no future events, and there haven't been any past. So it's pretty simple.
W5NGU.
Andrew, are you on the radio yet? KE5 GDB AF5RS. Nothing heard. Moving on. Old business. We don't really have any old business. New business. We're working really hard on our surplus equipment auction. Rex is working, Fred's working hard on that. We've got some auction software that he's getting coordinated, and just stay tuned. Area club activities, everything's about the same. LARC still has its meeting. It's on the air on the second Tuesday. Laura has its meeting on the air on the third Tuesday. Don't know much about Mars, ARRL. Any other comments from any members of the other groups? Nothing heard. AF5RS for ID. Our presentation tonight is from Dr. Bob Heil, who's a sound expert. I'm sure you all know of him for sure. I use a lot of his gear as well. He's going to talk about amateur radio audio. I'm not really sure if he's checked in. Bob, are you there?
I am. All righty. We're ready to go here, huh?
You are live on the repeater as well.
Okay. How much time do you have?
Half hour, 45 minutes.
What about 70 or 80?
We can do that. For you, we'll do that.
Could be 90 or 100.
Okay.
You'll see what I mean when I get into it. You guys will discover what's happening. Okay, well, thank you very much for inviting me. I love doing these club sessions. If anything happens good with COVID, it's this. It's really increased club membership and participation all through Zoom. And I don't think it's going to quit. I think we're going to always have some Zoom presentations to clubs because it's so easy. But I want to start off. We really get into the science of this hobby, and it's something that few people are hearing today. And this, what's encouraged me to do these things years ago. But when COVID hit, I thought, aha, Zoom is the way. And so I'm gonna spend a little bit of time on my history of where I came from and how I got here, because ham radio was my college professor, and two of my careers are totally because of amateur radio. And we're going to talk about speech articulation. You're going to learn a lot tonight, but let's get about 15 or 20 minutes into some sessions here. First of all, we're going to get back to when I was about 10 years old. I have fond memories. I started out playing the accordion as a child, and that really led into other things. And my parents bought me a B3 Hammond when I was 12, and I learned to play it very quickly. And I got a job, a professional job in 1954, and I knew what I was going to do. I only went to high school the required number of days because I was just going crazy playing and making money as a kid. 1956, a couple years later, I got a job as the assistant organist at the Fox Theater. And now, why this is so important to all of us is that's where I learned to listen. Voicing and tuning about 4,000 pipes from 1 inch to 32 foot. Tuning is not a big deal, octave-wise, but voicing is very important. All the harmonics had to be the same from one pipe to another. And it was a situation that I learned how to listen. Listening is a mental process. Not everybody listens. They hear, oh, okay, I hear it, but they don't really dive into what's happening. And that was really the basis of two of my careers. Also in that year, I became a ham. One of my high school chums had a ham radio license. And I thought, yeah, okay. And my parents took me to Walter Ash in St. Louis and bought a Harvey Wells, an SX99, and an RME converter. You'll see a little box to the left there with a meter. I wish I had the full picture of that. That was my first build attempt. I built a 2E26 6-meter transmitter, and I had only been in the hobby for just a few months, but I really got into building. The Harvey Wells is still with me. It's I don't know that you can. No, golly, it's right down under there. But I get on the air every morning on MoCam 3885 with it. But the thing about it is that I was only on the air about 2 weeks, and I heard the most ridiculous signal. Now, what is this? And I thought they had terrible distortion. I came back the next night. He was still there on the same frequency. And I happened to hit the BFO button on my SX99. Okay. Oh, out comes a voice. It was single sideband on 6 meters in 1956. That was unheard of because single sideband hadn't really taken over on the low frequencies. But what was so intriguing about all this to me was the sunspot cycle was its highest level. I didn't know all about that, of course. I just knew it was fantastic. I didn't need to get a lower license. I was a technician for 17 years. The bands were really ripe, going crazy all the time. We're talking 6 and 2 meters, so on. And one night I heard this sideband signal. I'm going, what is this signal? Well, it was single sideband, and it was K0DGE. And every night I would meet with him. He was just finishing the building this. And so he invited me to come and see him. I roll up in front of the building that he gave me the address one afternoon, and it was KMOX radio. Larry Burroughs was the chief engineer of CBS. He took me under his wing. We had just all kinds of things going on in those days. He and I were building fools, as I call it. I asked him, I said, would you build me one of those? No, I can't do that, but I'm going to teach you how. And he did. We went to Walter Ash. We bought a Central Electronics 10B. That was the first commercial sideband transmitter on the air that you could buy as a kit or built. Wes Shum was the father of single sideband for ham radio. If you had a trivia contest, you'd probably vote for Art Collins. He was 6 years later. Well, I built this transmitter, took it to Larry several occasions as I built it, make sure I did right. And I did. I got a 100 mark on it. I had plug-in coils, but we didn't use the 14 meg coil. Larry taught me how to use a grid dip meter, and we wound a 6-meter coil. And so we were halfway there. What do you do about the rest? He taught me how to use Greenlee punches, bought a blank chassis at Walter Ash, and I built a 6U8 dual triode tube oscillator, 36 meg crystal, bingo. Plugged that into the crystal socket instead of the other crystal. We were on 50 megacycles. I didn't realize it at the time, but I was one of the very few also. But the station grew quickly. When the NC 300 came out, I had to have that dream receiver. I built a Heathkit Seneca. All kinds of things was going on. I just had so much fun. But I was an antenna freak. My parents were such loving people. They were just fantastic. They allowed me to do about everything. But of course, I was really making good money as a child. And so they didn't have to buy anything, but they enjoyed seeing what was happening. That's a 110-foot Roan with a 36-foot long Telerex 6-meter antenna and a pair of J-beams on top. Had a local dealer. He was a Motorola dealer and a ham friend, K9SGD. And he helped me learn how to do all this. And of course, he put the tower up along with K9EBA, who was a contractor, and he had cranes and lifts and all that. And I was just mesmerized by all of this going up. Well, that antenna was very special. It was a spiral array. Telerex had trying to figure out how to cut down on the QSB, the fading. When you think about it, signals don't stay in the same plane. When they leave your antenna horizontally, they might end up at your receiving station that's trying to copy you vertically. There might be 10 to 15 dB of signal drop. And a lot of times you hear a lot of fading and stuff. No, it's not a loss of power. It's the rotation of the signal from one plane to another. And the volts, he wanted to make sure I didn't destroy myself. But anyway, I had a tremendous signal on 6 meters right in the middle of this sunspot cycle, working all around the world. Good grief, it was so much fun. Nothing like today. The bands were open 24/7. And if you weren't around in those days, you might think I'm kind of jiving you, but nope, it's true. Well, I was very intrigued about a phone call I got around this time. It came from Bob Drake of the Drake Company. He said, "Are you the guy that's got that kilowatt on 6-meter sideband?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "I would like to invite you to one of our meetings. We hold a meeting once a year, and it's a technical meeting. It's in the Biltmore Hotel. And they take all the furniture out of one of the floors, and they have the Collins room, the Hallicrafter room, the West Shum's Central Electronics room, Drake, Mosley, all of the great people. They were celebrities to me because I was reading about them in the magazines as a starting into the hobby. I had a friend locally here in Marissa, Illinois, just south of St. Louis, 50 miles. He had a Bonanza airplane, and he said, "Hey, I've heard about that meeting. Let's go." So we jumped in the plane, and away we got. Away we went. Where did we go? We went to Dayton, Ohio. It was the beginning of the Dayton Hamvention. And it was, again, something that I was just mesmerized at because I had read about this stuff. And while I was there was a guy that came to me and he said, I'd like to invite you to help us with an antenna project. We need somebody with a lot of power on 2 meters. Well, I qualified, I guess, discovered at this Hamvention that I was one of the first 10 on single sideband. Well, this is the antenna he sent over. It was 128 elements on 2 meters, a J-beam. And my friend, the Motorola dealer and the contractor, they helped me put this together. We had a spare lot beside our home, and we put up another 50-foot tower, and that was a 50-foot boom. Just amazing stuff. We had 2 prop pitch motors. You can kind of see them in the tower. We could rotate it, and we also could turn it to the moon. Well, I just became so enthralled with all of this stuff and the building and carrying on that we did. I built a 6 and 2 transverter. It was the first really had heard about. You see it in that bottom corner, SB62. It was a band switching transverter. So with that and the band switching final, I was on the air with all those big antennas. Well, CQ Magazine came along and they hired me to write a column called VHF single sideband. That's how rare and different single sideband was in those beginning days because it was still all AM. And so it became a place for the serious VHFers to share ideas and experimenting. And that really is what's lost for me today on 6 meters. It's nothing but a contest band. What's your grid square? Well, we went on and did all kinds of things. I also wrote for another magazine called VHF Amateur. That was a 6-meter transverter I built and also had the article how to do it. It was very simple, 3 tubes and about, well, I think there was a dozen resistors and 4 or 5 coils and away you went. So I just love sharing this, and that stuck with me today. That's why I'm here trying to help people, as you're going to learn in a while. But this station was just really my college professor. I learned so much from it. Well, at that time, I also got a job at the Holiday Inn in St. Louis. It was the largest Holiday Inn in the chain. It had 600 rooms on one floor. And they had there was a German restaurant in there, Schneidhorst, a very famous 4-star German restaurant. I built a pipe organ and they allowed me to install it. The pipes were all behind glass. All those instruments you see on that piano, plus the piano, were all driven by solenoids from a pinball machine, and they all played from the organ console you see there. Well, I did. I'd played about 12 years every night, and thought, I'm going to do something different. So in my hometown of Marissa, Illinois, 50 miles southeast of St. Louis, I started a music shop. I did not know what was in front of me because of ham radio. My parents had a shoe store. You can see him in the door down there in the white shirt next to that Ford car. And they had a men's clothing shop. But I got a Hammond organ franchise, and I was able to sell a lot of Hammond organs in those days to people's homes, churches, schools. I also started selling them to groups. And I would cut them in half. I was one of the first guys to do that. I made a portable B3. They normally weigh 300 pounds. We could get them down to a little bit under 200. That was better. But what happened was the kids around there discovered there was this guy with a soldering iron. And one day a guy came in and he threw this box up on the counter. And, well, what do you got here? He said, well, you fix things. I said, yes, sir, I fix things. He said, well, this is my guitar amp. I had never seen a guitar amp. I was just so enthralled, dyed in the wool with doing the concerts and the theater organ and playing all the venues. I didn't pay attention to music, the guitars and all that. Well, these kids started coming to me after that. They heard about the guy with the soldering iron. And it was like Michael McDonald, REO Speedwagon. But it wasn't REO yet. They were still in high school and hadn't formed a band yet. But they were all coming to me so I could help them. I quickly became a very big supplier of guitars, amplifiers, and so on, and fixing a lot of things. And in renting those Hammond organs, discovered that the PA systems in these arenas were terrible. They were built back in the 30s. So I got with the program pretty quick and started building large sound systems. You see, two of my road guys were standing on top of those big cabinets. They came from the Fox Theater. Fox played a big part in my life. They were throwing them out one day and called me, said, you want these big speakers? They put in a new system. Yeah, I did. And we came up with this monster PA. I didn't know any that no one else was doing. I didn't understand. And we were doing a lot of shows. One that was really significant was the Cavalcade of Stars. They come up once a month from Nashville. Dolly Parton, Jerry Lee Lewis, Porter Wagner, Buck Owens, all those kind of folks. They were very pleased and happy because they'd never played through anything like that. So I knew we were into something. But I got a phone call in 1970, and it was from the stagehand at the Fox. And he said, Heil, you still have that PA? And I said, I do. He said, you need to help us. We're in trouble. What's the problem? He says, this band came in here today, got in here at noon, and their PA didn't make it. I said, well, what happened? Well, the sound man and their PA got confiscated by the FBI and the DEA. Oh, okay. You're looking at a guy that has never to this day tasted beer, smoked a cigarette, any kind of drugs. I was a straight man in a crazy world. Well, he turned the phone over to Jerry Garcia. And Jerry was thrilled to hear that I had this big PA with Macintosh amps, JBL horns and speakers. You got to get that up here. And from that day forward, I became very, very good friends with Jerry until he died. It was really a sad day for me because they all respected me because I could build things for them. I could fix things for them. But that concert was a piece of rock and roll history, and might some of you be ahead of me on this. They did come to St. Louis, and they did have their equipment confiscated the night before. The story is that their sound man, Owsley, he was one of the inventors of LSD, and he was on probation out of the state of California. So the DEA, the FBI heard about this guy. They were going to try to sneak in this little tour. So they go to the first gig in New Orleans, sat in the back row of the warehouse there. And when the show was over, the band, Garcia and Bob Ware, Pigpen, they all came on to St. Louis. They had no cell phones in those days. So they got into St. Louis, and where's Owsley? No. So they called back to California and said, where's the PA? It's in jail, so to speak. Well, that's when I stepped in and really saved the night and saved that whole tour, and who knows if not the career. There was a man there. He had to be a journalist. He wrote this great article called The Night Rock and Roll Sound Was Born. You can look it up on Google. the night rock and roll sound was born. And it was posted in the one of the issues a couple months after in Billboard magazine. Well, then everybody was calling us. It was crazy. Jeff Beck and Joan Baez, Humble Pie, all these great groups. And I was really looking at this from a straight man. I'm going, if we're going to enter this, we're going to enter it right. We were the first people to do actually a tour. Up until that time, the bands, one of the band members would have the guitar amps in a Volkswagen van, another would have the lighting in a pickup truck, usually never get there at the same time. Oh, it was terrible. So I found an old Greyhound bus and we resurrected it. We put 11 beds in it so we could sleep my roadies, and that helped. Saved a lot of money on the road. But we were the first guys to use a semi. I leased a 40-foot semi. Man, things were really happening. Here's a neat little deal. Some of you might know this band. Nobody ever guesses it. It was their first show on their first tour that we did. That's ZZ Top without beards. We became very good friends, as I did with many of the groups that I work with. I was a straight man in a crazy world, but they respected me for the fact that I could do things only because of what I learned from ham radio. And I would tell them, because they'd ask me, how do you learn all that? Ham radio. But it just grew like crazy. And then to kind of round all this off, I got another phone call. And the guy was very adamant. He said, you the guy with that big PA? And I said, yes, sir. He said, we need you in Boston tomorrow night. I said, well, I can't be there. What do you mean you can't be here? I said, I'm with Chaka Khan on tour in Chicago. And I can't just walk out. Well, find somebody to cover it. We need you. We're in trouble. Well, I did find a friend of mine that had a system, and he took the concert for me, and Chaka Khan was okay. I said, but now wait a minute. I said, how are we going to get there? I can't drive there. We'd get there 2 days later. He said, nope, you go to the airport and you lease a Tiger Air Freight, and you drive your semi and your bus into this, and you get to Boston. Well, first time I ever rented a 747. I said, who are you? What is all this? Well, we are the Who. And it started another long lifetime friendship. We did their first tours after the 70s, and it was just wonderful. They were thrilled because they finally could make things happen. Well, I got a call after that. We were with them for a whole year. And I got a call from Pete Townsend. And he said, hey, Heil, come over. I want to talk to you. So got in a TWA airplane and flew to London and sat down in his studio. His studio was something. It was on the top floor of his home on the Thames in London. All kinds of synthesizers, way before anybody really had all this going. He was just a fantastic guy. And he was showing me some of the things that he did. That was fun. But you notice that red cherry he's leaning on. That's a little $900 home organ. And that was an organ that he put together with a synth so he could do the beginning of Baba O'Reilly. And I'm sure you all remember that. He did it on that home organ. Well, he called me over there. He said, Heil, quad sound is big right now in 1973. You think you could move Roger's voice around the arena and build a PA to do that? I said, yes, sir. And we did. But it so happened that we were working with a sister company, IES, in England. We built 2 like systems with all the big speakers and stuff. So they came over here, they had a contract with Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Or if I went over there with the Who or Humble Pie or Jeff Beck, we didn't have to take all the big stuff. Well, we were building this console building a pair of them. And it had just enough time. We weren't quite finished that we could add 2 more channels, and it was the first quad mixer. And away we went. So again, many things happened to me along the way, and the timing was so right. But I have a little story to end all of this before we get into the real serious part. Their drummer was Keith Moon. He was an amazing specimen. He should have been really committed. Pete Townsend always said he's absolutely mentally crazy. He did such stupid stuff all the time, but he was the best drummer in the world. And I was very fortunate that every night I would stand behind Pete's amplifier, and he was about 10 feet from the drums. So I'm just looking at him all the time. He'd jump up on the drums and do silly stuff. Opening night of Quadrophenia, our big deal here. We've been planning this for several years. He's just going crazy, playing such great stuff. But I look over halfway through the show and he's collapsed on top of the drums. I'm going, what is happening? And the band, they kept playing. He kind of questioned me, what's going on? We didn't know. He did collapse. And if you're any kind of a rock and roll historian, you know what's coming. He did collapse. And so we had to carry him off the stage. It was crazy times. We had a doctor. I had hired a doctor. I wanted him on all of the shows because you never knew what's going to happen. And he discovered that Keith Moon had taken a tranquilizer for a 2,500-pound horse. Hey, that's the way it happened in those worlds. Oh my God. But we knew anything was possible with Keith Moon. But we did make the concert. He came out. They gave him an antidote, and he came out for the last couple of songs. And just amazing. They gave me a golden record for that. It was my first and only gold record. And I was very happy and blessed. But one of the things that really helped me was my ham radio experience. And this was a biggie. Monitors were not heard of at that time. And you have to have monitors because the better the PA on covering the arena, the worse you're going to hear it back on the stage. So we had to use some kind of monitors, but they always fed back. Of course they did. Here's John Entwistle, the bass player. He wanted more 6 or 8 feet from about 1,000 watts of monitor. Pete standing in front of a column with the 250 watt driver in his ear. Keith, had a whole stack behind him, kind of hard to see, but it was there. Well, I was building monitors, but he didn't feed back. How come? Because of phasing. I learned about phasing years ago with my ham radio, and we're going to really get into it here in just a couple of 5 minutes. But the monitor thing really took off. Billy Graham's people called me. I traveled with them for a couple of years. What a wonderful thing. It was the first time Billy could ever hear himself in these big arenas because I had these 2 of these monitors right at his feet out of phase. They didn't feed back. Well, I got another call a year or so later, and it was from Paul Eclipse. What? Paul said, you the guy that's got that big PA? And I said, yes, sir. He said, well, I want to come and see it. Well, he did. And I'm going, what? He was the father of the folded horn. Paul Clips was the father of the hi-fi movement in the late 40s. He was a magnificent audio engineer. And he came to visit me because he wanted to know what I was doing with all these speakers and all this power. He was an efficiency nut. He could do 100 plus dB with just a few watts because of the speakers. Well, he became my real college professor. We became dear friends. I would make many trips down to Hope, Arkansas to confide in him and ask questions, and he helped me so much. Here's where you want to wake up if you've been sleeping. You want to get your pencils out because you should take some notes here. Paul referred me to the studies of the Bell Labs. He referred that to the idea factory of the 1920s. Bell Labs was a consolidation of AT&T and Western Electric, and that was the manufacturing arm of the Bell system. They had a huge problem when they put the telephone system together. It took them years to do it. But when they got it all hooked up, it wasn't very good. They had 2 wires from New Jersey all the way out to the West Coast. And every 50 miles across America was a relay station. And it kept the voltage up, kept the frequency, the audio frequency up. Everything was good. There was only one problem. They couldn't hear. All they could hear, but this is what they heard. I'll change the microphone here. This is where it gets good, guys and boys and girls. Really good. Here is what, when they turned it on, it had no articulation. It was very mundane, basic, no life, no transient response. They couldn't figure it out. Well, now, wait a minute. They had put a lot of energy and money into this. It was going to be the telephone system, and they couldn't understand it very well. What are they going to do? How's that going to work? Well, how that's going to work is they had 4,000 scientists and engineers assigned to this newly created Bell Telephone Labs. Now listen up. They were fully dedicated to researching how the human ear worked and what frequencies were most important for the human to understand the spoken word. And instead of it being like this, it became this, and they could understand. And yes, there were 4,000 scientists that figured it out. 2 of the lead scientists were Dr. Fletcher and Dr. Munson. And they discovered that our ears are nowhere flat. And that higher the level, the flatter it is. But down at 20, 30 dB where, so what are they going to do? Well, it was very easy. They went back to the 4,000 scientists. And this is what they discovered. That between 2K and 3K was very essential in the understanding of the spoken word. And here's the proof of that. This is what we heard without thinking and listening. Listening is very, very important thing. And that 2.5 was gone. All I am going to do, I'm going to turn one control knob. But when I do, you're going to hear a magnificent rise in articulation, and it will seem like the bass went away, but it didn't. Here we go. It's just the fact that your mind, your brain centers. The minute I get to 2.5K, there you are. It's just magic. Just magic. Here, let me take it off. I'll do it again. There's the 2.5. It's gone. Here we go. As I bring it up through, there's a 1K, there's 2K. But the minute I hit 2.5K, it's very easy to understand the spoken word. Without that, we're in big trouble. So they had to equalize the telephone system. And it was something that really hadn't paid much attention to, because up until that time, the engineers had always thought audio response being flat was good. No, it wasn't. Dr. Fletcher and Dr. Munson, they taught us that the flat response does not play. And into voice communication, absolutely under 100. And those frequencies only muddy things up and waste RF energy. It's that 2.5K that's so magic. Let me prove that bass thing to you. All I'm going to do here is I'm going to turn up the bass. And the minute I do, the 2.5 is going to be lost. Here comes the bass. And my articulation was wiped. Here again, all I'm doing is taking out the bass, reducing it. And the minute I do, the 2.5 shows up. Audio is on a teeter-totter. You have to balance it. And that's exactly what we're doing here. And that's exactly what we have to do to our amateur radio. And it was just such a sad thing that nobody really paid attention till all this came about for me. I got back into radio because I'd been off for 12 years. And when I got back on, I could not believe what I heard. I'm going, what happened to my great Art Collins audio? It was like, what? It was all mushy, bassy, had no transient response, for gosh sakes, no articulation. So I thought, I think I might be able to help. And I did. What I did is I built the first equalizer that ham radio had ever seen. The word wasn't even known in the circles. It was a simple 2-band equalizer, had a bass and a treble. I, as the engineer, after about 2 years of playing around, figured out between all of the Fletcher Munson curves and the scientists, 160 hertz where this filter is. But it allowed you to either increase or decrease. That's all you could do. That's all you needed to do. Where do you think the top filter was? Of course, it was 2.5K. You're going to hear this so much tonight, you're going to dream about it because it's so darn important. And nobody talks about it in ham radio. When I first did this, I have, and still today I'll hear them, I don't need no darn EQ. Oh, yes, you do. And let me tell you a little secret. Everything you have, CD players, any kind of tape players, anything audio, your car radio, are all pre-equalized with that 2.5. Well, I don't have any pre-equalized. When the engineers build audio things today, they know about those 4,000 scientists. They know about what Dr. Fletcher Munson brought to us. And so they take care of it. We needed help. So I wrote an article for QST, and I was very happy. The article became the lead article of July 1982, and it got the cover award. I didn't even know about cover awards. And I did it as a DIY, build it yourself, right? Forget it. No, that didn't happen. So I had to put the plant back together because we had 35 people working in this plant. And we were building a lot of things. We were building power amplifiers. Modular was the first power amplifier, audio amp. If something blew up, 5 minutes later, you could unplug the side and plug in a new one. And same thing with the mixers. We had 35 people working at our own wood shop. My brother-in-law ran that. We had a fiberglass shop, building all kinds of things. And of course, a lot of big sound systems. One of the things we did with that, by the way, we were doing a lot of festivals at kind of the end of my sound career. It was nuts. I saw a lot of that. Oh, an awful lot. And for a guy that doesn't smoke or drink, but that's okay. I was there to make the band sound good. I wrote a book. It was about my third book called The Practical Guide for Concert Sound. It's still out there. It's helped so many thousands that were trying to get into sound reinforcement, but there were no books. Well, there was. I did the same thing for ham radio. If you don't have this book, I would advise you to get it. These are not books made for us. Huh? Huh. Oh, yeah, they are. The engineering books, the ARRL handbooks, I name them. All those books, my God, you got to be a third-degree engineer to read them. And so I wrote books for us, and it has helped so many tens of thousands. I get a call every day, either an email or a call. I got 3 of them today. And people learn things. And that was what was important to me. Very important. But I got back into the radio thing and was really, really diving into it. Late 1999, I get a letter from Dr. Inouye Communications. And he had a picture of his IC 781, that great contest rig, had my EQ 200, and he had one of our gold lines. I'm going, wait a minute. This is the guy. But he said he wanted to talk to me about installing in his new line of radio. His new line of radios became the Pro 1, the Pro 2, Pro 3, all the way through to the 7610, the 7300, 7851, and he just sent me this. My goodness, little 705. They want me to build a headset for it. So I did, and that's just coming on the market. What an incredible thing while I'm here with this. Oh my gosh. If you guys, gals, if you don't have one of these, get it. It's the neatest toy on ham radio I ever saw. It is a 7300 in a little 3-pound box, battery operated. It'll run about. So that's what we did. It's cool. Anyway, you see, I didn't know this at the time. I learned quickly. These guys don't build their own microphones. What do you mean, man? I bought this radio and it came with my matching microphone. Really? What they do with it? There it is. Came with my matching microphone. The only matching is the same color. How do I know that? Because I work. I'm behind the lines and I'm freaking out because why don't you have somebody build it? Well, ICOM did. And it was a magnificent move. It was so easy that people could now make their ICOMs all sound good, really good. But the problem is, I hear so many. I heard 3 or 4 of them again today on 40 meters. They got 7300s, but they don't know what to do with them. It's really sad because the manuals are a joke. Well, it's so simple. Here's a 7300. The first thing you have to do with any radio is set the transmitter bandwidth. If we're going to do this for rag, we're going to set it at 100 to 2900. Very nice and smooth. We're going to roll off some bass. I demonstrated a few minutes ago. If you were listening, remember about that listening, you want to roll some of the bass off, minus 2 or 3 dB, and you want to increase that 2.5K that I put into the treble. Now you have a decent signal. Now, what happens if you want to do some DX? Well, the first thing you do with every transmitter before you even plug a microphone in, set the transmitter bandwidth to 500 to 2500. We don't want any low end. Now adjust the equalizer. You notch -5, all you can notch, and you notch all the treble. Is it pretty sounding? No, not really. Well, why do you do it? That's real simple. I do it because the DXers have to have perfect articulation. I'm going to go over here a minute. Let me get this going. Okay. Some years ago, after I had built the equalizer, the California DX Club in 1985 invited me to build a headset with a very articulate element. That headset was monumental and a piece of history. The BM10, tens of thousands of them out there. It's still being built. Only today we added a push-to-talk line in the line. But anyway, it's got that element. And you hear it. You do not have to listen very closely because I am in your face. Well, what do you do? Why do you do that? Well, here's why. I have a demonstration. You're never going to forget it. At first, you're going to start laughing, but you're not going to laugh when I show you what's happening. This is all so important, and it bugs me because nobody's telling you, but that's my job these days, to try to help you learn more about your equipment. This balloon signifies RF. You think about the air in here being RF. We're going to set the parameters. And it's all pretty balanced. You want to be balanced. But what happens if we want to be really in the DX mode? Well, I don't care about anything but that mid-range. So I told you we're going to roll it off at 500 and 2500. Well, when I did that, where is the RF going to go? We've got 2.5 cranked to the ceiling. Where is the RF going to go, everybody? Just like you heard with the Pro 7. It's in your face. No, it doesn't sound good. But it allows you to put all of your energy, no matter what power, where you need it. And I've proved several times tonight so far that this is very important to equalize things. ICOM really got with the program, and since 1990, actually I think it started in 2000 when they started producing them. They now have this in all their rigs. Here's the 7610. Yeah, the graphics look a little different, but same thing. I want to roll off that low end and punch up that treble. But the first thing I want to do is set my bandwidth. If you're going to be in rag chew or you're going to be a DXer, you set it to where you need it. 7851 and a lot of other earlier ICOMs, that's a kind of menu they have. Still the same thing. It's the same EQ. He also asked me to build him a microphone. You see, they don't build their own, and they're terrible. Well, it's matching, Heil. What are you talking about? Yeah, I know that. But it doesn't sound as good as it could. And so I did it. And if you have never heard, and you probably have, didn't know it, if you don't own this and you own an ICOM, you better step up. It's called the ICM. Almost spells ICOM. It won't work on a Kenwood, won't work on anything but ICOM. ICOM has very low gain preamplifiers. They've been that way since the late 60s with the 701, 720, 730. You have to use active microphone elements. And these electrodes today are Chinese pieces of garbage. We did it right. And the ICM is magnificent. I have never heard one. I've never had a bad report. I read EAM almost every day. And if I would read one, they're not doing something right. And I will help them adjust it because it's where it's at. The ICM for the ICOM. What are we going to do about Yaesu? Well, about 2 years after Dr. Inoue and I got going, Dr. Hasegawa came to me at Dayton. He says, I want to do it better. I said, oh, okay. You want to do it better. You could do a parametric. Ah, that'd be good. I said, it's going to have a lot of problems. What'd be the problem? Education. What do you mean? With regular two-band EQ, like this, like we have in the ICOMs, it's bass and treble. I set those two frequencies only by knowing all of the things that Paul Klipsch and those many, many scientists and engineers taught me. Okay, what about parametric? You are the engineer and you have to set the parameters of all the filters. You don't have two controls. You have 9. Think about this. You have 9 buttons. And I will tell you right now, the majority of Yaesu owners are still in the default mode, and it makes me really sad because their manual is terrible. It's just a bunch of they don't mean anything. I don't even understand them. So, what are you going to do? We have some good pages on our site, but here it is. If I brought a 10-year-old child in here, stood them next to me, within the next 3 minutes, they will be a master at setting a parametric EQ. And now so will you. You ready? Now you got to listen here. Remember, listening. Don't be reading QST or calling your buddy on a phone of anything. This is really important. There are 3 filters. 3. And they each have 3 controls. That's 9 buttons. Okay. We're going to talk about one filter. The first control in that filter is the frequency. Where are you going to set it? See, that's the problem, I feel. Guys really don't know where to set the frequency. Well, after listening tonight, you probably could figure we're going to do it like about 200, 160, somewhere on that low end. Let's do it at 200. The second knob is the level. Are you going to increase the bass? No, we're going to decrease it by a few dB. What's the third control? It's the audio, not transmitter, the audio bandwidth. And I usually set them at 2 octaves. That means that a 2-octave filter will stretch an octave above and below. So it'll kind of feather out for you. So you don't have to worry about that. Just set it at 2 octaves. So we got the first one's done. Frequency, level, width. 200 minus 3 dB, 2 octaves. Now, here goes the second one. There's something about audio always has bugged me, even through my concert days and even with the organ thing. Anytime there's any audio, there's a certain thing that happens between about 800 and 1200. It's a boxy sound. Put your hands up against your ear. You'll see what I'm talking about. It's a boxy sound. Well, you want to get rid of that. So the second filter is going to set at, say, 900. We're going to notch it 3 or 4 dB and 2 octaves. Frequency, level, width. 900 minus 3, 2. Was that hard? No. Okay, you probably are ahead of me. I sure hope you are. Where's the third one going? 2.5K plus 8 dB. I want all I can get. And let's go 3 octaves, as much as we can do. So we're done. It's so simple. Frequency, level, width. Frequency, level, width. Frequency, level, width. Now, was that hard? No. Now, while we're on this page, it's not very clean. When I took this picture, I should take another screenshot of the front panel of the Yaesu. That entire left column, it's an assignment number. It's not, we don't care about it. And so it's 101, 102, 103, 104, so on. We don't care because it changes with every Yaesu. Some of them will be 301, 302, 304. Another one will be 501. We don't care. All we know is that we do that first one, frequency level width, frequency level width, frequency level width. Now, are we finished? I forgot something, didn't I? What was it? Bandwidth. It's very important. You have to set the bandwidth because it isn't in that series. You have to look for it on your menu. It's easy to find. But then here's the kicker. Now wake up. Listen, 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 Yaesu owners. After you do all this, you have to hit the save button. There is a save button. If you don't hit save, it's back to flat. So you have to make sure you save it. But that's how easy it is. And all of this it ends up on our website. The DSP settings for other Yaesus that don't have the parametric, it's all there on our pages for you. For the MP series, you set menus. The 2000, 9000, you can do that. And the 450. All of this stuff is on our site under support. There are probably 50, 60 pages, all things ICOM, all things Yaesu, all things Kenwood, all things Holocraft. It's really wonderful. And we update those very often. So you want to refer back to that. I know some of these websites are pretty stupid. They just want to sell you stuff. I'm there to help you. And there are many, many pages to help you. Yeah, the other stuff is there. Well, the other thing we have to talk about is how to use a microphone. What are you talking about, Heil? Oh my God. What is wrong with me? Why would I want to try to tell you how to use a microphone? Because a few people don't use it right. I'm on the air every day and I hear and I get so upset because nobody has really helped any of us. And that's why I'm here. You have to be able to use a microphone properly. And this certainly isn't the example. Here's why. Again, going back to the 4,000 scientists, think about it. They taught me a lot. Every time you double your distance, you lose 6 decibel. Now think about that. If you double your power, that's 3 dB. We're going to do 6. Well, think of all the power you lost. You lost transient response. You lost all kinds of articulation. You lost your dynamic range. You should never, ever, ever, never be more than 2 inches from a microphone. Here's what happens. Watch and listen. When I go down about maybe a foot or more, what happened to my audio? Lost it all. Well, shut up, Heil. All I got to do is just turn up the gain. Then I sound like I'm at a roller rink. Give me a break. No. We're going to bring that right back up where we were and listen what happened. We got our articulation back. We got our dynamic range back. Transient response. What's transient response? That's how fast the diaphragm in your microphone recovers. When you speak into it, it drives it down into the voice coil. The transient response must be quick. A lot of microphones do not have good transient response. So therefore, you want to make sure that it's there for you. And these, again, are things we just don't hear about. A few years back, Sarah and I had a second home in California. We really went there to help Joe and some of our other people work in the studios and so on. Joe said to me, I need you to build me a better microphone. And I said, really? What's wrong with what you got? You guys are all using them. Yeah, I know. That ball mic thing, it's got to be right here. I can't move it. Build me a microphone and I can move around. And so we did. All of our microphones are Omni on the front. If you're watching, we're moving 180 degrees and you didn't really tell any difference. That's the way it should be. But we want to stay in that close range of 2 inches. But Joe said, yeah, I want to do that, but I want a microphone that gets rid of everything behind me. Well, we did that to some event, but it's not all that good because that's really not possible for this type of mounting. So I took him up on it and I started working. And what we came up with was monumental. And it has become the darling of the broadcast industry. The reason that I did it for Joe is that, again, it was one of those things that I love things that challenge me. I'm going to unplug this microphone. I got to change the output because the thing has a lot more output. Okay, there we go. This is the PR40, the great PR40. It has become great. That label fits it perfectly. Here's why. First of all, it's Omni on the front, but it's the only microphone, $5,000 to $300. I don't care what you pay for them, that has any kind of rejection. We're talking 40 dB of rejection. It's never heard of before. We did it. Here it goes. When I talk in the back, watch the screen. It's going to be 40 down. And it is. Oh, it still works, but it's 40 down. And that is lovely because it gets rid of anything behind. The broadcast stations they always have glass in front of them, and their voice goes into that glass and back into the microphone out of phase. And oh man, we fixed it. Well, how did you do it? Ham radio, antenna theory. Yeah, really. Here's how I did it. Every microphone out there, I don't care the brand, I don't care the cost. First of all, the dynamic elements of all these microphones, except ours, are little 3/4 inch to maybe an inch, all those ball mic things you see. And they have, around the edge of them, they have 4 little holes, little 1/8 inch. 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 12 o'clock. That's for the entrance of the rear rejection. That's not enough. So what I did is I opened up the whole bottom of that, set it on a pedestal, call it the signal collection tube. Now, all of the frequencies, the mids, the lows, highs, they all come rushing up these side panels. The entire bottom of that element is open. And of course, anything that comes into the bottom is going to be out of phase. Bingo. And now it's become the darling. Sirius Radio just tossed their RE20s, bought 250, and they're buying some more. So many broadcast stations have figured it out. And so I'm very blessed that ham radio brought all this to me. And there's so much about it. Well, how does phasing work? You hear the word, but how does it work? If you had a trivia contest and you ask who brought single sideband to ham radio, you would probably say Art Collins. Nope. He was 6 years late. It was Wes Shum with Central Electronics. How do you get rid of the carrier? How do you get rid of the other sideband? Some idiot falls on your frequency and you get rid of him by hitting the notch filter. How does that work? How does your Yagi work? Oh, we know exactly how the Yagi works, or do we? This is a great story. You see, Dr. Yagi didn't have computers, all that modeling nonsense. He did not have any of that. He had to do it just by his mind and trial and error. He found out if he made a driven element, put it on a boom, and then made a director a little shorter, and by placing it at the exact frequency away from that driven element, he could get gain. But if he went behind a little longer, it could be out of phase. And so therefore, wow, you no longer had to worry about what was behind you. I've always wanted to do some things with phased arrays. I figured, oh man, it's going to cost me a fortune because I hear all these big contest stations have them. Back in 2008, Sarah and I bought 5.5 acres down in the Ozarks, just a getaway place. We'd sold our California place, and I had 5.5 acres to play with. And this is what I did with it. Pay attention, because you will want to do this. It is not a big deal. I guarantee you. Here we go. Come on here. It's completed the installation of a 75-meter phased array antenna system, consisting of a pair of coaxial dipoles mounted atop a pair of 55-foot telephone poles. We put them in an inverted V fashion, and the poles are 64 foot apart. These are 500 foot from the operating position, fed with RG213. In order to make the antennas directly from east to west, we use a delay line, a 43 foot here on 75 meters that's switched in and out of the driven element, either east or west. The downlead length is 126 foot. We take all of that coax, the downlead length, the 43 foot phasing delay line, and mounted them in a container, one of the plastic container boxes that we actually buried. And just the top of it shows
It's all sealed, so it's waterproof. But that's the way we get to switch all the components from 500 foot using one of the Amatron RCS 8V remote switches. It really works well. Take a listen to how we can get at least 10 to 20 dB difference east to west.
Like a lot of people do. Mine's usually 3 inches or so. That's just after you done mow it. And I know, probably, we get a dry day. I'm gonna have to lay out there and mow. That's just all there is to it, because if you leave it that high, when it starts growing in it all, it's looking ragged pretty quick. So it's to that point now, and
the system really performs on weak signals. Take a listen as we switch to the direction they're coming from. Also note the preamplifier makes no difference on 75 meters on this signal. The preamp will, of course, make the meter read higher, but in many cases, the preamplifier does not cause the weak signal to be more readable. Check it out.
yeah, well, I see they introduced big display on it, and I don't know if that is their form of portable, or what that is. Your wire that hooked up to your computer, and then did you use your handheld to go through it?
Don't have to say anymore. What an incredible thing it is. And it's not expensive to do. I went to the co-op there, the electric co-op, and got my poles for nothing. They take like 100-foot poles, and they get knocked over by a car or whatever. They cut them off. And had a couple of guys locally had the right tools to drill a hole and put them up. Away you go. Magnificent. And it just worked so well, all because of phasing. But I did one other thing with it. I love the switches. I had some Ameritron. I only use one relay, but I don't like rotary switches. So I went to Antique Electronic Supply in Mesa, Arizona, and I bought some Les Paul guitar switches, and they worked really, really good. And I switched the east to west on that. I also switched regular antennas, the colored ones. I switched the radios. So it was just really fun stuff. Well, I have the absolute best demonstration of phasing, and it's going to really come home to you. I have 2 microphones, identical. Well, I know they're different colors, but I have a Y cord, so I can use 2 of them into one input. And let me get that. They both are alike. Exactly. They're PR22s. I built these at the invitation of Paul Rogers, a bad company. He wanted a microphone that didn't have to be equalized, and that's what we did. PR22, it's great. It's what I use in most of my radios. They're in phase. These are balance line in phase. So if I put them together, they just come up 3 dB. Well, now wait a minute. You couldn't hear it. You couldn't hear it because the human can't hear 3 dB. Let me come back some night and we'll get into that one. Doubling your power, forget it. You wasted your money. Because doubling your power is this right here. My meter went up 3 dB. You can't hear it. The human can't detect that. You'd be better off to take that $1,000 that's going to buy your kilowatt and give it to your wife so she can buy more shoes and purses. Yeah, I'm telling you, that's what you do. I know firsthand. Okay, here we go. I made this magic little plug. And what I'm going to do is put it in here and plug this all back together. Big deal, still works, still sounds exactly like this one. What'd you do that for, Heil? Because this one is out of phase. When I speak in this one, the diaphragm comes up. When I speak here, it goes down. When I put them together, they're out of phase. Check me out. Watch the screen because they cancel. One works, they all work. Two works, they all work. Not together. They're out of phase. 40 dB down. That's how you do so many things. If we had hours, it's my favorite subject. Boy, could we get into it. Oh, yes, yes, yes. But I just don't have time. There's so many things to talk about. Come back and talk about our days with Joe Walsh and the Talk Box and Peter Frampton, one of my best friends, and all that stuff and all kinds of stuff. But I want to leave you with this one. I want to know what we can do about the receiver. What are you talking about, Heil? What do you mean? What I mean is working with these companies, I was never able to convince them that all of the receivers are terrible with audio. All they want to talk about is sensitivity, selectivity, da-da-da-da-dum. I got 400 memories, okay. What about the audio? Working behind the scenes, I discovered every one of them, from the $15,000 one to the $400 one. They have 1 watt at 10% distortion. It drives me crazy. I just come unglued about this because it gives you such listener fatigue. And you just think, well, noise is doing. No, man. The little 1 watt amp that they all have. I think the 15,000 had 2 watts. Big deal. But 10% distortion. And worse than that, they take a little 5-inch speaker that's not really good, put it in a box, paint it the same color, you pay $200 for it because it's matching. It just drives me crazy because I can't. They listen fine when we talked about equalization, but they won't do that. So I said, okay, I'm going to do it. So what I did is I built a parametric equalizer. There it is. The low and the high, they're shelving. They're fixed at 160, just like I did for the transmitter on the ICOMs. You can increase or decrease those two. But the mid-range is parametric, and you can move it from 400 to 4K. It is an incredible product. Nothing's ever been done like this. Oh, there's been a few crazy things. This is all analog, man. You're looking at an analog man in the digital world. I guess you know that. I don't want to hear about DSP. I don't want to hear about digis. I want to hear about analog, but it's got to be done right. And I did. The first thing I did was I used some of Paul Klipsch's great knowledge that he taught me years back about how to build a speaker. We built tens of thousands of speakers. And speaker was something that it just really, really was great. What I did is I took that speaker outside in free air, found a cone resonance, then we built the enclosure to that frequency, how we coat the inside, how we mount it. It also has a 3.5-inch tweeter, titanium tweeter, but the amplifier is not 1 watt, it's 25 watts, but it's at 0.1, not 10. It's hi-fi specs. And I'm very, very, very proud of this. The receiver's magnificent. But then we had to do the equalizer. And what I did there really turned out to be something very special. I didn't know going in what exactly I could do, but boy, it worked out great. First of all, we have 2 headphone amps on the left. They're separate little level, high level amplifiers. They run about 2 watts. Headphones, so you can have your logger and you can have your your operator. Okay, good deal. The other thing you can do with it is you can plug the left side of your headset in one and the right side in the other, and you can balance those. What a cool thing. I cannot tell you how many emails, phone calls, and things I get from people that are hard of hearing or have a hearing imbalance. Wow, how cool is all of that? We have a ton of people using them for televisions. Television audio is awful. There's also another one right beside it that's record out, separate level. And what that does is it allows me to take a cable out of there and run it into my computer and make beautiful, beautiful recordings. And that's always a tough thing to do. Well, here it comes. I have a recording that I did. I did it off of 75 meters one night. And then I got into 20 meters and did another really, really good one. But take a listen to what we did here, especially the DX one. It was really good. We'll bring this up so you can see what we're doing. I'm really happy that I can show you some of these things because they're going to change your life. I'll tell you that for sure. There's the equalizer. That equalizer, as I told you, it's all analog. Now let me bring up some level, and here we'll listen to some. This first one we're going to listen to is a DX station. There's the way you hear him.
Echo India 8 Bravo Lima Bravo EI ATLB.
There's the way you hear him. Here we go. Pulling right out. There it is flat. There it is the way you hear him flat.
Echo India 8 Bravo Lima Bravo EI ATLB calling invite.
I don't really have to say anymore. There's no argument about what that can do to your station. Parametric receive audio system. And I'm very proud because it took me a long time to do it. But we listen to you. And I've had so many people ask me over the years, even simple things like headsets for handy talkies, which also works on the 705. Everything out there is junk. You know it. Not this one. It doesn't have my name on it if it's junk. Very high quality. I think it costs $30. The guys that are out doing parks on the air and stuff like that, we build a really cool lightweight one, have it single or double. And the Pro 7, where do we start? It is the master of all. The reason is I listen to so many of the DXpedition guys and the contest people that helped me design it. It has features that no other headset has, and I'm so happy about that. First of all, it has a balance control from left to right. So if you have a hearing imbalance, you can do that. But it has interchangeable elements. This happens to be the DX element. We have a full range element, and we have an ICOM element because it has to be special. But when I developed this, I'm thinking of Paul Klipsch all the way through. I never was able to do this, but we have the room here. The speaker sits way back here. Look how far from your ear it is. So you don't have any problem with a hearing aid feeding back. And like I showed you a while ago, you put your hand up against your ear and you hear that hollow sound. That's not true here. It's so comfortable and it works so well. But it also has a neat little jack in the side. And that little jack is a monitor out. So if you have a monitor guy, a logger, he plugs into there and you don't need any Y cords. But then comes the biggie. We're the only company been doing this for 12 years. It has phase reversal. What in the world would you want phase reversal for? Very simple. You go into a pileup and you hear a little weaky back here. You reverse the phase, he comes up here. You can move signals around in your head acoustically. It really is a miracle thing. And nobody's doing it. All of our headsets have this feature. I have a piece of steel, and if they're too tight on your head, don't worry about it. Shape it. If you got a pinhead like me, make it smaller. And it's just one of those things that the companies building stuff, I don't know what their problem is, but I can tell you one thing. They're building products just to sell and make money. We aren't. Oh, we do well, but not what they're really worth. I can guarantee you that. But I'm happy to do it for you. I've been doing it for 55 years. But the only thing that remained with me was the connectors. You're going to say, what? The connectors are garbage. Little bitty Chinese connectors that came over here in 1960 on the CB craze at the beginning of it. Little bitty ring on it. You have to have a needle nose to tighten it down. Well, the ring on my connector is about a 1/2 inch. And then you come up to the cable clamp. They don't work. You go look at your matching microphone. It doesn't work because they're using like heat shrink or rubber tape or whatever to make the cable clamp work. It works for a year or so. This one, I designed the cable clamp to work with my cable. You can pull your car with it. It never comes out. And it also clamps down a second little smaller one. That's your push to talk line. But I designed my own wire. All of the wire. I'm talking about 125% of all the wire out there is absolute total junk. It's at least 24 gauge, some even smaller. How stupid. And they are in a shield that is awful. You start spreading it apart and you end up with two little leads. This one is 100% silver braid, and it's really great. It solders good. But you'll notice something special. Unlike any other microphone cable, we have the balanced line inside because most of our microphones, the PR series, are all balanced. Get rid of a lot of RF. But look at the blue and the red. It's outside. Why? Because that's DC, push to talk, and your cable, every cable on ham radio, they're all inside. What a travesty, because you're coupling that DC into that very sensitive AC. I've fixed more RFI problems just by changing cable. It's amazing. And so, we just continue to try to help people. And a lot of this is in the handbook I told you about earlier. You want to pay attention to that. For me, I was very honored a few years back. We were the only manufacturer in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. There's a lot of the equipment that's a Quadrophenia mixer and one of the monitor speakers, our modular power amp. The other side of that is the first talk box and all other kinds of things. But I learned it all from ham radio. That's my story. And I barely made it out of high school. And a few years back, I received an honorary PhD from Mizzou University. It's like, whoa, how can you do this and you hardly made it through high school? But it's all about ham radio, and that's why I'm here. I want to share this with you, and I don't want it to end here. I want you to contact me. I want you to do whatever you have to do. If there's anything, no questions dumb the first time. I'm your guy, and we'll help you through all this. Get on Skype if we have to. Send me an email. We're there for you. And I do hope you're using some of our products because as you've seen tonight, there's no question about our products. Do we have any questions? Gotta be some questions.
Let me open it up, Bob.
Okay.
Information net.
Nobody? Come on.
Anybody out there got a question for Bob? AF5RS on the W5NGU repeater.
Nobody asked. Do you have other?
Go ahead, Michael.
I was just going to say, do you have other presentations? I've learned so much tonight. It's incredible. I'll let Guy go with this question.
Thank you. That's the idea. We want to bring you some of this great knowledge that I've picked up over my years. And it doesn't stop here. We learn every day. You have a question for me?
I think there was a question on the radio. Come back.
KC5GOI.
Go ahead, Guy.
It was more of a comment than a question. I've met Bob at Xenia. I think it was the first time we were at Greene County. And Bob, I don't expect you to remember that I helped you carry some stuff back to the booth after you did a presentation. But I wanted to say thank you to Bob. Some of the presentations and the information that I've watched from you have been a very big influence on how I've designed my station and a lot of things that I've learned. And I've passed that down to my son. He's not a ham, but he's going to school to be a content producer, media tech over here in Farmers Branch. So he's got an autographed copy of your original book there, the book you showed earlier, Bob. So I just wanted to say thank you very much, and I appreciate everything you've done in ham radio over the years.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, the books have really helped a lot of people, and I'm very fortunate that I was able to bring them, because the books, and I'm not making this up, you got to be an engineer to read half of them. And we don't need that. We need things that we can just simply learn something. And that's what I try to do when I write. And when I do these things, they could be so complex, but I hope they aren't. I hope you learned something. So thanks. That's a nice comment. I appreciate it.
We got any other questions out there?
Whiskey 5 Echo Alpha Kilo.
Go ahead, Rex.
I had to cut back the audio there on my computer. Thank you, Bob. This is Whiskey 5 Echo Alpha Kilo Rex. I've been using your products for so many years, I can't tell you. I've still got my PR 781 on my Yaesu FT DX101, and on my FTM 400, I've got the MH10XD, and I've got Heil Traveler out of my mobile, and a few other laying around in here. My headset is still Heil. I met you out in California at a ham convention out there when I was on active duty. I was that funny-looking guy in a Navy uniform. I was a lieutenant commander out there at the time, and so I look like the good humor guy, all dressed in white from head to toe. But I got to meet you out there, and I wanted to thank you at the time. But you were just mobbed. But we did get to wave at each other as we walked by. But thank you very much for your time, and it's good to see you, if not in person. W5EAK.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I appreciate being able to be here. I appreciate the invite. Now what we're doing, as I said, we're just about to cross 200 of these that I've done since March. And this week I'm doing 2 on Wednesday. I'll do a West Coast, East Coast, that kind of thing. But I just love sharing this stuff, and Zoom is allowing us to do it. But now what we're doing, we're coming back to play and just picking on a subject and focusing on just 1 or 2 subjects. It's really been something, because we get even more technical. So maybe we can do that too. Any other questions?
Any other questions?
So Foxtrot 5, Victor Oscar.
Go ahead.
Name is John Hill. Can you tell a little bit difference between setting up a microphone for 2-meter FM instead of SSB?
What's the second? The first was a 2-meter, and what was the second thing?
Stand by. He's breaking up.
Casey, live for clarification.
Go ahead, Guy. Can you relay?
Yes, sir, and I was kind of wondering the same question too. Bob, he was asking about the difference between setting up settings for like an FM repeater on 2 meters versus sideband.
Well, here it's absolutely two different worlds. First of all 100% FM transmitters are pre-equalized, and they set the bandwidth, and you really can't do much with them because if you use the right microphone, it's probably okay. And I've never had any kind of great luck in making them better other than getting rid of the microphone. That's a problem. The reason is I hate hand mics because they all sound like this. And you say, well, mine doesn't. Oh, yes, it does. Whenever you put an element in a clamshell, this is what you get. And what I did is I took that away, and you're not seeing the screen perhaps, but you open up the top of it and all of that hollow nonsense goes away. And I'm really happy with that. We have a hand microphone that does just that, our HMM, Heil mobile mic. It's great. And it sounds so good. That's about all you can do because it all starts at the microphone. And you can't really do much more with the little FM transmitters. That got to start at the microphone. That's about all you can do.
Thanks, Bob. Any other questions?
What's the question in chat?
5 MFJ.
MFJ, go.
Mr. Heil. Hello, I'm going to adjust my radio down here. It's nice to see another musician in the ham radio. I don't meet too many people, but I'm coming about it a little bit differently. I was in the music industry and now just now learning about ham. And I noticed that you work for Wurlitzer and played the big Wurlitzer. I started selling those in 1974, and I worked for Lowry, and I was Hammond. So it's nice to see another musician, somebody from the music industry that come into ham because there's a lot of synergy.
Well, when I first
so much tonight, I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
85 MFJ.
Thank you. When I started my music shop in 1966, I became a Hammond organ dealer, a Lowry dealer, and sold a lot of all those babies. But the love of the theater organ has never left me. That's how I learned to listen. In fact, there's one sitting right in front of me. It's about 10 feet in front of me. I built this studio. We opened it just in January, right before all the pandemic stuff. And I do a lot of live things with organ clubs and so on. And then we got some stuff on YouTube. I'm putting more and more. I recorded 2 this morning. But that's really my bottom line is that theater organ. And I started playing when I was a young kid, a very young kid. So I'm still with it and I still love playing it. So in fact, I got a little deal I do on some of these. It's up to you guys. I end this by turning off these cameras and go over there and I'll play a little 2-minute ditty on the old theater organ. And then you can just dial me out whenever you listen to 10 seconds or 2 minutes, whatever. So it just, whatever you want to do, because that's where I'm going from here. I do a show every Saturday night on WTWW. That's the 200,000 watt shortwave station in Nashville. 5.085 right above WWV. I do that every Saturday night at 7 o'clock called Theater Organ Under the Arch because we're very close to the arch of downtown St. Louis. So that's what we do. And it's still my great love. I spend usually an hour a day. I come in just to piddle around. I'm here for hours. But I thank you very much. And I'm sure you appreciated the years you were with Flowery and all those guys.
So there's one more question in chat. Which band was the most tech savvy and really understood what you were trying to do?
Oh, that's no question. Pete Townsend. Pete and I were still good friends. He was a magnificent technician. He ran that whole band. And we should have a night come back. I got a whole thing about the talk box thing. These things, they go so long, but I can't leave any of it out. But I have to leave all of that out because that would be another 2 hours or more. But the thing with Pete, we became really good friends because all the sound man, you got to understand, 1972, there weren't very many people that knew what the hell to do with a soldering iron. And he was really, really mesmerized with some of the things that he and I could come up with. He'd ask to do it and I could do it. And so we taught each other a lot, but oh man, he is something. Yeah, so come back and tell you that whole story sometime.
Well, we're about to sign out. Anybody else got a question? Go ahead.
Charlie, this is Dan in the county. I had a friend of mine, still friends, recording studios in Illinois, called Jerry Milam. He built a recording studio called Golden Boys, and a lot of bands played down there, but he was just phenomenal. He helped out a lot of people and stuff. But I remember I was talking to him about him building mixing consoles back in the 60s because nobody did it. And so they had to make them by hand. But I just remember, listening to you talk and stuff about hearing stories about him doing similar stuff. So anything, this was just great to listen to. This is KC5QIC.
Okay, yeah, it was a lot of things going on in those days because you couldn't go to the store and buy them. But we put a slow stop to that because we became quite a significant dealer to all the bands worldwide, actually. And people would come from the UK and Australia all over to come to Marissa, Illinois. Well, thanks, everybody. This has been great fun. I hope I get to come back and we can really dive into something. And
well, thanks, Bob. We'll certainly want to have you back. And yeah, we can dial in on some particular, topics or something. It's been great. Really enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Okay. Did you record this?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, might send me a note or a link on it. That would be great.
I would be glad to.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. We'll come back and do it again.
Thank you, Bob. Have a great day, Bob.
Yeah. Thank you.